All right, guys, and we're still, monitoring the situation in the Middle East, guys, where Donald Trump has essentially, again, there's a bunch of mixed messages. Psychological warfare is in effect. We are getting, media outlets who are pro-neocon, pro-war, are claiming that Trump is getting ready to sign some executive order to be directly involved with the war in Iran. And there are other outlets saying that no, that they're just defending their troops, the American troops and assets and interest in the region. So again, mixed messages, very, very confusing. And so, everybody is kind of trying to get this thing to stop. Iran is going full force. They are spanking Israel like never before. The Israelis have lost so much, miscalculating attacking Iran, which has a very sophisticated ballistic missile system and is surpassing the Iron Dome, the THAAD, the aero defense missile systems, the everything possible. Billions of dollars spent on these defensive missile systems. These air defense systems, they are completely failing. And what's even more of a vulnerable target is U.S. troops in the region, which don't even have that type of defense, right? And they can be targeted at any time, anywhere, and within distance reach of Iran's ballistic missiles. And so now we're seeing a lot of the neocons pop out of their rat holes. One of which is Lindsey Graham, who has accepted money from every nation, China, Saudi Arabia, stuffing his pockets with money, Qatar. This guy takes money from everybody, and he is a puppet pretty much for the elite financial class, along with the military-industrial complex, who are working hand in hand to, they are. I believe they might even be at war with each other, using their proxies all over the world and gambling with millions of people's lives. All right, so let's get into his comments here, guys. Let's get into his comments.
South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham. Senator, you were praising the president for his patience and seeking peace and going back to the table and back to the table. Yeah. You can't say that he didn't try to give them an opportunity, knowing what the eventual outcome was going to be. And, he said, I told them it's a shame, it's a waste of human life, they can't have a nuclear weapon, and everyone should immediately evacuate Tehran. How do you interpret that, sir?
Well, I take President at his word. He gave Iran 60 days to do a deal. On the 61st day, we are where we are. There's two ways to stop Iran from having a nuclear weapon. One is diplomacy, the other is force. I think the headline tonight is we're moving into the land of force. I think Iran has allowed themselves to be fooled into thinking they could manipulate Trump. Same old tactics with the wrong guy when it comes to Trump. To all those who voted for President Trump and got him in office, God bless you. He's the right guy at the right time. These are dangerous times. Why do we say no nuclear weapon for Iran? They're a religious theocracy. They're built around an extreme version of Islam. They want to destroy Saudi Arabia and the Sunni branch of Islam. They want to kill all the Jews in Israel and come after us. That's what their whole country is built upon, a theocratic view that there's nobody else in the world but them when it comes to worshiping God. If they had a nuclear weapon, they would use it. Israel believes that. I believe that. So here's the task at hand. Be all in, President Trump, in helping Israel eliminate the nuclear threat. If we need to provide bombs to Israel, provide bombs. If we need to fly planes with Israel, do joint operations. But here's the bigger question. Wouldn't the world be better off if the Ayatollahs went away and replaced by something better? Wouldn't Iran be better off? Tom Cotton is coming on. He made a great observation. The endless war is Iran. Since 1979, they've been attacking the entire region, chanting death to America, death to Israel since their very founding. It's time to close the chapter on the Iranian Ayatollah and his henchmen. Let's close that chapter soon and start a new chapter in the Mideast, one of tolerance, hope, and peace.
But the Trump doctrine seems to be very clear.
All right, guys. So, again, major neocon been advocating for war with Iran for several years, and doesn't want to talk about the consequences of making that decision to go all in. U.S. with 30,000, 40,000 U.S. troops, all vulnerable, could be easily targeted, and assets in the region, oil rigs, Strait of Hormuz, that Iran could choke the entire world economically. You know, again, just a fucking paid bonehead. And, you know, so we're hoping like what this is, what Trump has his tone that he's recently changed is just for play and just to get everybody to sit down and negotiate something, because we don't want to see lives lost and economic collapse, worldwide economic collapse, oil. You know, again, with like the psychological warfare, we get another report saying the Trump administration says they are not joining illegal warfare of aggression. Chief Pentagon spokesman, American forces are maintaining a defensive posture that has not changed. We will protect American troops and our interests. So it seems like MAGA is at war with each other, right? MAGA is at war with each other. You have the individuals who are bought and paid for by the elite financial class, including the military-industrial complex, and those who are, you know, truly MAGA first and really trying to avoid war, right? So there's like a civil war going on, and Trump's caught in between. And knowing who Trump is, him being bought and paid for, him having all this blackmail on him from being butt buddies with Jeffrey Epstein. And he even met Melania on the pedophile plane, on Epstein's pedophile plane. So, I mean, like the guy, you know, I don't see him catering to his MAGA base at all, right? He's going to abandon them and, yeah.
Fox News alert, Donald Trump leaving the G7 early and returning to Washington, where he's requesting the National Security Council be prepared in the Situation Room after a deadly weekend in the Middle East. In Israel, 24 fatalities, 600 wounded. The death count even higher in Iran, 224 dead and counting. Iran retaliating by firing over 370 missiles at the Jewish state, but Israel's hitting back harder.
Not really. That's so crazy. They're only showing like the very few interceptions that Israel was able to intercept of the ballistic missile. But this comes to the propaganda and the nature of this fucking mainstream media channel, which I don't really like watching, but I kind of want to see what they have to say, because now they're changing their posture, saying, "Oh, Iran," and now Trump doesn't want war. So they're not showing like they're only showing Israel intercepting missiles and them striking like the what we find out later on is aluminum decoys that aren't even like the ballistic missile launching systems or the some of the other assets. These are all they were all decoys that Israel was targeting, and so they're not showing the damage and destruction Iran's been like spanking them with. You're gonna have to go on like Twitter or X to see that. And by the way, they are arresting people in Israel if you were to show any images or anything like that on Twitter.
Overnight, Iranian missiles struck an Israeli oil refinery and a power grid. This morning, a state TV outlet in Tehran was bombed during a live broadcast.
آنچه که ملاحظه کردید، صدایی که شنیدید، فضای غبارآلود استادیوم.
Tel Aviv is claiming full aerial superiority over Iranian airspace. They downed 2 Iranian fighter jets today.
Those are all decoys, by the way. This is reported from the IRGC. These are all aluminum decoys. And it's interesting how these assholes in the mainstream media and these journalists like Piers Morgan and all these other people, they didn't want to call out. No one said anything about Israel targeting journalists in Iran, right? They targeted a news station. No one called that out, and they keep talking about how they need to wipe out the regime. What does a journalist have anything to do with the regime? Israel's killed the most amount of journalists in any conflict throughout its entire history, and they did so once again. They killed another journalist. So add that journalist. They killed 2 journalists in Iran during that bombing. So add that to their list of I don't want to say accomplishments, but of shame and disgustingness.
After top Iranian military officials were taken out Friday. Israel says they've already destroyed a third of Iran's missile launchers.
What the eventual outcome was going to be. And
all right, so a little bit of misinformation here from this post here. But again, guys, people are going back and forth. There has been a report now saying that 8 senators introduced a bill to prevent the United States from joining Israel's war with Iran. So 8 senators have come out and said, nope, we're not having that shit, right? China, which we talked about how China is going to be very essential in what their involvement in this war is, because they obviously don't want regime change in Iran. They're bordering Iran. They don't want a U.S. Propped up regime there where the U.S. could come in and do espionage and spy on them and shit like that. They don't want that, right?
This is the end.
China's over here, man.
Hold your...
man, I didn't know there's a song. Hopefully I don't get copyrighted. But yeah, China's calling all its nationals to bounce out of Israel. And there are reports saying, yeah, China's telling everyone in Israel to evacuate immediately, right? Because you got to remember, China helped Pakistan spank India to a ceasefire. You know, don't forget about that. China was the one who essentially was giving India a lot of intel to spank Pakistan, a lot of intel to spank India back into a ceasefire. That's why they couldn't escalate. And then Trump turned them down when they thought India was trying to, become like a second Israel, like where they get all this funding and these weapons and shit. And Trump turned that down. So, yeah, man, very serious developments in the Middle East.